Hi folks, well you asked for it and here it is. My games outside of my top 100. These are games that are in my collection but didn't make my top 100. Now in this case there are 31, so I'll do the first 16 now and then I'll do the last 15 later, and of course there'll be some changes at the end of that one. But let's get on to number 131, which is Timber Tom. In Timber Tom, you're basically moving around this board collecting 4 different treasures and you're planting trees along the way to hinder other players. And of course the first one to get all 4 treasures and make it back to the log cabin wins. This is a very straightforward kind of children's game. It's got really nice pieces. It looks wonderful on the table. Unfortunately there are not enough trees and the gameplay is kind of move. You don't have to roll because wherever you are in any of the areas on the board will tell you how much you can move. Well, then that makes the games kind of repetitive, doesn't it? So we switch it up. We added a die. You hardly get to play cards in this game, and there's a nice deck of cards. So we added another rule to where you can get more cards easier and play those. I tried to spiff it up a little bit, but I can't get over the fact there aren't enough trees. I mean, you could add double. This game needs double the amount of trees that is required, because pretty soon you're going to be pulling trees off the board and moving them around the board, which that isn't fun. So anyway, that's the reason it doesn't make my top 100. At number 130, it was number 100 last year, so it drops 30 spots, and that's Stargate, the board game. Stargate is basically a move, fight, and roll for the highest, highest die wins the fight. It's very basic. Now, I love Stargate, and this was number 100 because I had a group of people who love Stargate too, and we played it. It wasn't that good. I told you there's a problem. You have to have a lot of players in order to, have a decent game where you're fighting a lot more. That was easily solved by just adding one more sector you have to cover to win the game, and we did play that with like 3 or 4 players and had a really good time. Unfortunately, though, there's not much to the game. You move, you fight, you play cards, and a lot of them, there's not much variety in that deck of cards either. So this game really took a big hit on the list, of course, but good news is it's moving to my vintage game list, which it qualifies for next year in 2019, so it should get a little bit more love on the vintage list. My number 129 was number 74 on my list last year. It drops 55 amazing spots down, and that's because it's a party game, but I still like it. Say Anything. Say Anything, basically you read this comment and then everyone writes on these marker boards, and then you bet on which one you like the best or you think that person's going to choose. Then that person uses a dial and they put it face down, then they flip it over, and whoever wrote the answer gets a point. Whoever bet chips on that answer gets a point. And of course at the end of X amount of rounds, I think it's 12, whoever has the most points wins. It is a fun party game, okay? Again, I don't really like party games. I'm not a party game type of guy. However, I do enjoy Say Anything. I don't bring it out hardly at all anymore because if I'm with a group, I'd rather play something else. But if they want to play a party game, I will be sure to bring out Say Anything. My number 128 was number 93 last year, so sadly it drops about 35 spots here on the list, and it is Machi Koro. Machi Koro is a game where you're rolling dice, collecting money to pay cards, to unlock other cards, and you're trying to unlock this entire row of cards to win the game. It's actually a really fun game. I do not play this without the expansions. I have them both, and it's a lot of fun. The reason this takes a hit is twofold. A bunch of new games on my list. Of course, any game in the 90s probably isn't going to make it. But secondly, there's a game that does this unlocking these cards that make you more powerful mechanism better. I don't really know what that mechanism's called. But anyway, it's Black Fleet, which is on my top 100. I just like that theme better. However, we still play Machi Koro, and my nephews absolutely love it. So it's a game that still gets played. Unfortunately, it's just not on my top 100 anymore. At number 127, it was my number 97 last year, so it drops 30 spots, and it is Santorini. Santorini is this cool looking game. It's got nice board table presence where you put this up. It's you're stacking these towers. You're trying to get your little man to the top of the tower first, and it's kind of, I think they call this dexterity game. I don't know. Anyway, it looks really nice once the game is through. Each one of your Greek gods and each one of your gods have a special ability. It's not secret. It's a special ability that they can use to kind of prevent other players from scoring or help your player to score as well. Now, I have all the little extra characters for this because my little nephews loved this game. Played it a million times last year, and back when it was number 97, I remember saying the only reason this game is on my list is because my nephews love it. I think the game is so-so. Now, I still have the game in my collection, but we haven't played it at all this year. I brought it out for a 2-table player board when I had a big gaming group one night. I didn't get a chance to play Santorini, but to be honest, I didn't really care to. Santorini is like sushi. I don't care for sushi either way, but if someone said, Matt, you want to go get sushi? I'd say, yeah, sure. That's how I feel about Santorini. I'm never going to suggest it to be played, but if someone says, hey, can we play Santorini? I'll go, I guess. And that's why it's outside my top 100. My number 126 was number 92 last year, so it drops 34 spots off the list, and it is Here Kitty Kitty. And Here Kitty Kitty, I guess you're a crazy cat person. You're trying to get these cats from the neighborhood into your either yard, front porch, or home. The closer they get in, the more points you'll get at the end. Now, of course, there are other ways to score bonus points in the game by getting various colored combinations of cats. And you're playing cards either to help yourself or to screw other players. And it's very simple, but they come with these nice little cat icons, figures, I mean, and they're just so cool. And it's a simple, straightforward game to play. We have played it this past year. However, it didn't make the list because there's just other games, you know, that just kind of kept pushing it down. Again, any game of my 90s from the year before doesn't really stand a good chance staying on the list, especially when I'm getting so many new games. But it's still a fun game. Happy to have it in my collection. At number 125, this was number 89 last year on my list, so it drops 36 spots. And that is Monster Menace America. Monster Menace America, you are like a Godzilla or King Kong or giant monster beast, and you're rampaging through the U.S., but at the same time, you also control one of the armed forces, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. There's even a bonus Coast Guard that everyone can control at the beginning of the game. Then someone may pull a card to control the Coast Guard themselves. I like this game better than King of Tokyo and King of New York. I will admit, King of Tokyo and King of New York, both those games are very smooth. This one plays a little bit clunky, but I still forgive it because I love how you're controlling monsters and then bringing armed forces after the competition and trying to knock out their monster too. Now, if a monster gets knocked down, he just goes to Hollywood to make some monster movies to get his strength back up, and then he goes back to rampaging. It is a fun little simple game. It got pushed down the list only because of new games. I really believe that. But however, there is someone in my gaming group, when I asked him what his favorite games of mine were, he said this one. So I'm sorry, you're going to be a little upset that it didn't make my top 100. But yeah, like I said, just new games came in and just pushed this one down. It's still a fun game though. I love it. My number 124 was number 91 last year. It drops 33 spots off my list, and a lot of my gamers in my group are going to be upset when I say this, but it's Roadkill Rally. Roadkill Rally is really a big favorite in my gaming group, and I love it too, but it, like I said, new games just kind of pushed it down. In Roadkill Rally, you're racing around these tiles that whenever you put them out on the board, it won't be the same track you're running, and sometimes the tiles have special things you have to do to get by them, special hazards, or pedestrians you can run over. They have kid figures, people figures, and then grannies with walker figures. Oh, the pieces in this are fan-friggin-tastic. And I think that what adds to the game. It's a little grim, yet you're running over kids and old grandmas. And the old grandmas are worth the most, which is just awful, but it's really fun to play. It's really fun. You're trying to hit pedestrians for points. You're trying to shoot the other cars in front of you as well for points. And of course, you're trying to finish the race. Now, here's the thing I like about this. A lot of times, whoever finished first does not win the game because they have no options to shoot someone behind them. They can only shoot in front of them. So what you kind of want to do is you kind of want to be in the middle of this race because you want to have enough people where you can shoot in front of them, but then come in maybe second or third in the game to get those bonus points at the end. Now, if you're running last, that's no good because there probably won't be any pedestrians to run over. At second place, you're probably running over any pedestrians that the first car could not hit. or just skipped over and avoided. So it's kind of cool where there's a game where the focus is to stay, in the middle of the race for the most part, and then try to win at the end. You don't want to be in first place the whole way through, even though there are bonuses, I guess, for being first place. Look at me analyzing this game all over again. It is a great game. I'm sorry it couldn't make my top 100, but fantastic game all the same. My number 123 was number 87 last year. It dropped 36 spots on this list. And I hate that because it's a Queen game. And I love Queen games. It's Show Manager. Show Manager is so much fun. You are trying to cast 4 different shows. And however your card hand is, that's the type of show you can cast. So if you have a small hand, you can cast the small show. However, if you get more cards added to your hand, you may no longer cast for that small show. You have to cast for one of the mid-weight shows. And then if you have a full deck, you can only cast for the biggest show. So it's kind of card, it's kind of card. You're trying to control the cards in your hand, put the best shows together. Sometimes you always don't get the right people you want. And when the people come up on the board, you have to pay more for them, or they can slide down and maybe you can wait and no one will pick them and they'll get cheaper. There's a lot of good options in this game. There's ways to borrow money from previous shows, but that may hurt you in bonus points if someone scores higher on, because everyone's making the same 4 shows, and the best cast gives you the best score, and of course at the end, whoever's the best score overall wins. It's so much fun. My wife played it a lot with me last year, or I should say in 2017. In 2018, she did not play it at all with me. And that's probably why it got booted. Another reason it got booted, on top of new games being important to the list, is that there is another game that kind of killed this one for me, Shakespeare. I love Shakespeare a lot more. So for that reason, Show Manager bumped off the list. However, still a fantastic game. Happy to have it in my collection. Number 122 is a new game to my collection, is Rallyman. And Rallyman, you're racing, not against each other, but against time. You're trying to get through the same track in the quickest time. And how you're doing that is basically push your luck on rolling these die to get into the higher gears, to save time, to get lower second chips. If you crash or wipe out, you have to take a minute card, which a whole minute added to your time to get back on the road. That's no good. So it's not who finishes first, it's who has the best timed race. I like that. I like that little difference in the game. I'd heard a lot about this game. I bought it at BGG SpringCon. They had their, they're blowing out their archives from a lot. They're just cleaning up their library and selling off extra copies of Boardgames. And I didn't have any intention to buy this game, but I saw it and I was like, oh, I've heard a lot of good things about this. So I picked it up, I think, for like $10, and it was fun. It's a lot of fun. One of my nephews, he hates Formula D, which is obviously one of my favorite games, but he loves Rallyman. He said he won't play Formula D anymore, but if we ever play Rallyman, he's in, because he likes that aspect of racing against time instead of the pressure of racing against other people. Because to be honest, you don't know who wins until everyone's done. Then you add up all your time pieces, either the little second tokens or the minute cards. And to be honest, it's a big surprise a lot of times because you really don't know who, I mean, you have an idea of who's doing really good, but it's different. And I like that in a racing game. But it wasn't enough to make my top 100. Still a great game. At number 121, it was 94 last year, so it drops, I think, 27 spots on this list. And it is Sharkmania. Sharkmania, you are these pirates, and you're rolling this die, and either you get to move that many spaces or take that many coins off the board. But you need to hurry because all the while, there's this shark being pulled on a string, and it's tearing up through the docks and pier, and if it hits you, then you're out of the game. So it's a racing game, but you have to stop long enough to grab some coins. Now this is a very quick game to play. I think it takes like, a minute to play. I mean, the game moves really fast, maybe 2 minutes. But anyway, you will sit down, you'll play several and back to back to back. It fell off my list for a couple of reasons. New games getting added. It's a children's game. And plus, I didn't get to play it as much as I did in 2017. 2018, I usually bring it out when I do shows at the local theater in town because it's a quick game, easy to set up, easy to teach, and we can play it in between breaks, and everyone has a fun time. I didn't get to do that this year. I only got to play it with my nephews. Still a great game. I'm not getting rid of it out of my collection, especially now that I'm going to have kids, and I want them to play this game too. But unfortunately, all those things came together, and that's why it got bumped, off the list for the top 100. These next few games are all new to my collection that just didn't make the top 100. The first one is Family Vacation. Family Vacation, you're a family of 4, a mom, dad, daughter, and son, and you all have different interests that are randomly, drawn out of a pile of chips. And then you have a card that's, say, hey, here's some places that you might want to go for extra bonus points on your vacation. Then you just take off around the U.S., even Mexico and Canada, trying to have the best and biggest vacation ever. Every time you go to a city, you can pick one of the interests. You want to pick interests that your group is happy about because you want to keep them happy throughout the game. There are cards that can also improve the happiness of your crew. You also have a plane ticket if you want to move, from one big city to the next. But the next person who goes into that same city you left in, they can't take that same token. There's one of certain tokens in each area, and once that token's taken, they got to take something else. So you want to be the first to a lot of these places, especially those big places that give you a lot of points. There are smaller little roadside places you can go to for extra points too, but it is really neat. You're trying to make it all the way back and back to your home, and then at the end of the game, whoever has, of course, the best vacation with the most points wins. I like it. I love the game. I love the uniqueness of this game. Sadly, though, it is just move, score points, move, play a card, move, do this. Not much, versatility, I guess, to say, even though it's got a lot of playability because this game will always be different, but it just didn't have oomph enough to get onto my list. But I still love the game. Great game. Mrs. loves the game, which is always a plus too. My next new game at number 119 is Monopoly Gamer Mario Kart Edition. Holy cow. This killed Monopoly for me. I used to love Monopoly as a kid, and every once in a while, my wife and I are like, yeah, let's play a round of Monopoly, usually around New Year's. This year, it's going to be Mario Kart, Mario Kart, Mario Kart. Mario Kart is so much fun. The game goes faster. I've never had a game go over 25 minutes, I don't think. I think they've been anywhere between 17 and 20-something minutes, 22 minutes. The game goes super fast because you're only moving around the board, if I think, depending on the number of players, 3 times, I think. So, and like I said, there's a lot going on. You got these, it feels like Mario Kart because you're rolling turtle shells, you're always hitting people, you're picking up coins along the way. The game moves fast, and that was the whole purpose of it. But it feels like a Mario Kart game too, mixed with Monopoly. I mean, the theme is really good here. And for a while I thought, dang, is this going to make my top 100? And maybe it could have if I would have gone to my family vacation last year, because I planned on bringing that game and testing out with my family. And if they loved it, that was going to be a big deciding factor to see if it got on my list. Unfortunately, I didn't make it, so it didn't make my top 100, but still, really great game, surprisingly good. Don't pass this up based on just the Monopoly, logo on it. It's actually an awesome game. Number 118 is A Dog's Life. And A Dog's Life, you're just a dog trying to get a bone, or actually 3 bones, and you're trying to bury them in your backyard. Now, the whole time you got to keep your dog fed and away from the dog catcher. So you're digging through trash trying to get food, or begging for food, or maybe you're delivering newspapers to get food, or maybe a bone. Who knows? You're also drinking from water fountains and peeing all over the place to stop other dogs' movement. I know, this is really weird. Now, the reason it didn't make my top 100, to be honest, I really thought this was a shoo-in for the top 100 when I got the game and showed it to my wife, because she loves dogs. And she played the game, she won the game. I thought, oh, okay, so what do you think? She went, nah, it's okay. Do you want to play it again? Nah. She didn't like the game, and then I knew, well, it's not going to be in my top 100. Even though I did later on last year, I did play this. At the end of the year, I did play this with my little nephews, and they absolutely loved the game. They loved, one of my nephews, he didn't win, but he peed over half that town. He was really happy that his pee was everywhere. It was hilarious. I'm glad he enjoyed it. But anyway, A Dog's Life, great game, not leaving my collection, regardless of whether the missus loves it or not. At number 117 is the game Chang Ching. Chang Ching is where you're building the Great Wall of China, and then you're fighting off Mongolians, invaders after that. It's a very simple game, easy to teach. I play it with all the little mini stuff that's put in it. And the only reason it didn't make my top 100 is because I didn't feel there was enough game in it. to get it up in there. But it's still a great game. My nephews love playing it. My board game group enjoyed it too. Of course, setting up those wall pieces are really neat. There is a lot of strategy involved in it. So it's still a great game, even though it's not in my top 100. As you see, most of these games I'm talking about, I really love. So just because they didn't make the top 100 doesn't mean they're bad games, just mean there were games that were better, obviously, right? But Chain Ching, really fun game. And finally, at number 116, it was number 65 last year, so it drops 51 spots. Eek! But it's okay. It's Mice and Mystics with all the expansions and Tail Feathers included. I gotta include Tail Feathers in there too. But Mice and Mystics is a great dungeon crawl, usually for families. This is a family dungeon crawl. You're mice who are trying to save the king, and you're fighting off snakes and beetles and, oh gosh, other rats and stuff, and it's a lot of fun. Now, why did this drop so much if I love it? Well, last year I kind of finished through all the modules, and I can't get my little nephews to play it because when they would think dungeon crawl, they want to play Descent. I showed them Descent first. I didn't have Mice and Mystics back then. If I had to do it all over again, I would have shown them Mice and Mystics because they would have really loved that. But now that they've seen Descent, they don't want to play no kiddie dungeon crawl. But Mice and Mystics is just wonderful. But I didn't get to play it in 2018 because I already finished through all the modules in 2017, which is why it had to drop, I guess. Now, when my girls get older, maybe, just maybe, they'll want to play Mice and Mystics with their old man because I think they would love that, and I would love that too. And when that day comes, expect this to make it back onto my top 100. Until then, it's at 116, which is not bad because it's still a great, great dungeon crawl game. All right, folks, that's all the time I have for now. Come back and I'll review the rest of my games that are outside my top 100. See you then.